Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again based on one of your newer suggestions. This one also tied to yet another Cautionary Tale. It's another cryptid where if you're doing something wrong out there in this world, then there's a good chance that you'll come across this cryptid. And that yet again, this one is also tied to another cryptid linked to Central America. So I've talked about various versions of these cryptids in some of my past videos. So yet again, here's another one that's found out there within the region of the world. This cryptid goes by several different names. I guess it depends on, again, which region it's found. But at least for the purpose of this video, I'll call it as the Siguanaba, which you're looking at a picture of here. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this cryptid, along with some of the various ways you can counteract its effects. So let's say you do come across it and it decides to attack you, you'll still be in a safe situation if you follow some of these guidelines. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here in terms of the Siguanaba. So what is the Siguanaba? Well, again, it's a cryptid that's found there in Central America. Specifically, there's 3 areas that you'll have a good chance coming across this cryptid. It's either going to be found in El Salvador, it's also found in Guatemala, and then lastly, it's found in Costa Rica. Each one of those locations seems to have its own variation of the Siguanaba, but they all also have a unique link, a unique set of universal traits that have a common theme between each region. And that's what I'll tend to highlight here for this video. As far as its physical characteristics, let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. First thing I'll mention though is that this thing is a shape shifter. So yet again, it's something where there's not 100% a exact physical trait that can be linked to it. Instead, it just depends on the victim, if you call them that, coming across this cryptid and then seeing what they see as far as their own unique perspective. I imagine when I was reading this information, I imagine that each person sees this cryptid a little differently. And I guess it all depends on what this cryptid decides to shapeshift itself to that person. But if you had to go by one unique trait, it's this. There's a good side and a bad side associated with this cryptid and how it looks. As far as the good side, and I mentioned that in quotations, is this. It presents itself as a very beautiful, seductive woman, in particular to any man that comes across its location. It's all about presenting itself in the most beautiful, absolutely beautiful fashion to help lure these men to their ultimate demise. In other situations, let's say when it comes across children, it apparently creates itself as the child's mother. So in that case, it can help lure these children away, especially if they're not supposed to be in an area that they were told out, let's say given warnings of, and yet there they are. So that in this case, it presents itself as the child's mother. And in other situations, it's this person's loved one, something along those lines. So this is again a cryptid that shapeshifts itself to its most favored, desired person, whoever it comes across in its location. And then on the bad side, let's say when it finally lures someone over and it takes it to its location, which apparently are either riverbanks, streams of water, caverns, maybe even forests. The whole point is to get the person to an area where it can be disoriented, far away from where it would normally be as far as this person's location, and then it reveals its true form. Again, it seems to be shape-shifting itself to the person's ultimate horror. So each person, you and I, we have our own unique designation when it comes to what we think is the most horrible thing ever in terms of a visual representation. So when I was reading this information, that made me think that maybe that's what this does here. So I've read that it presented itself as a form of ghoulish-like figure. In others, it seems to represent itself as insects. And others, it seems to represent itself as a horse-like face. And with others, it also ties itself to a skull. So again, it seems to be whatever causes this person to almost go insane by the sight of it. That's its innermost, whatever that person's innermost fear is. That's what this creature will essentially become. And then that's it. Once it creates itself in terms of its true form, again, based to a person's unique trait, then that's when it either destroys the person, or if they're near a nearby river, then it drowns them, or in some cases, in a much more insidious way. I was reading this on another page. If they're in that, let's say, forest or cavern-like area, it'll basically leave its victim as is. So there they are, mad with fright, and then there they are in a location just completely and hopelessly lost, no chance of them being able to escape, and that's how they end up dying. Just days and days of wandering around, having no idea where they are, and then here's this thing all gleeful with delight at its situation as it watches its poor victim die. So again, a very bad creature that you want to come across out there in Central America. But it seems to be tied to this too. If you're doing mainly bad things, then that's where this creature comes about. I was mentioning that earlier as far as a cautionary tale. So if, for example, like in most cases it seems to be with young men, if you're out there and let's say you're wandering around some of the cities, some of the cities, areas, when let's say you're supposed to be at home instead with your family, with your spouse, with your children, but there you are wandering about, maybe trying to find something else that you know you shouldn't be doing, like in terms of a mistress or something else, that here is this cryptid ready to meet you, apparently either naked or dressed in what's considered a very flimsy white nightgown, out there in the middle of nowhere. Again, in most cases, it seems to be just washing itself, let's say by the stream, by the riverbank, just creating an absolutely alluring situation that this person who already wanted to do bad things can't say no to. That's the cautionary tale. It's there to essentially teach a lesson. And I mentioned earlier, as far as the other children, like let's say those that are told and warned not to go to certain locations, but there they are wandering about. Let's say once they have that little tiny moment away from their parents, here is yet again the Siguanaba ready to meet them. But if you're doing that, at least good things in those locations, like let's say staying at home or just doing things as far as not wandering about, then chances are you won't come across this creature. I was mentioning though earlier that if you do, let's say, meet this unfortunate situation, like as far as coming across the Siguanaba, there are certain things you can do to help protect yourself. And then that way you can truly ensure, even if you've done something bad to get to that situation, you can at least still be able to do something to protect yourself. Number one is this. Let's say you do come across the sight of a beautiful woman, again, taking a shower or something else nearby that riverbank, or maybe even, like I said, the forests or the cavern-like area where all of a sudden somebody is there out of the blue. Apparently, if you say this, which translates in English as "you're not going anywhere, Crabgrass Marry," that is supposed to be something you say 3 times. If you do that, then the Siguanaba will get scared. She'll realize that this is something that is no longer a ruse and that she's been found out. And so she'll throw herself into the river, or she'll throw herself deep into the forest, something else, and she'll basically just run away. And then that way you'll be able to then know that this was truly a Siguanaba and there's nothing she can do to you. But another case is this. If you want to, let's say, have some form of final attack. Let's say the Siguanaba, for whatever reason, was able to lure you somewhere. As long as you have something along the lines of, let's say, a cross or a medal with you, something that you can pray to, if you put it in your mouth and bite into it, or use some kind of ritual prayer as this thing is about to attack you, then the Siguanaba is supposed to run out in fear. Like, in other words, she's realizing that there's this counterattack that's coming to her, and there's nothing much she can do, and then that's it, she's gone. And another interesting twist is this. Apparently, the Siguanaba, almost if you play possum with her, will realize, at least think, that you're dead. So the idea is this. If again, you're coming across the Siguanaba and she does some kind of attack to you, if you lie on the ground and look upwards into the sky and then just pretend to be dead, at least that's how the info read to me, then the Siguanaba will kind of leave you alone. Like, she'll realize that this person that she's trying to lure as another victim somehow is already dead, and then she leaves afterward, and then you're free to just run out at that point. And then one final thing you can do, this one sounded a little weird to me, so I'll just explain it here. But if the Siguanaba is again attacking you, if you find something involving the tree and you start pulling on any of the leaves there, I don't know why this is the case, but the Siguanaba will let go of you, because the idea is, it seems like to her you're pulling on her hair in a very dangerous manner, or at least something that is very harmful to her. And then when that happens, then the Siguanaba is supposed to then just run off. I have no idea, again, how that works. Somebody might have to explain that to me, as far as how pulling the leaf of a tree is synonymous with causing great harm to the Siguanaba. So if somebody wants to mention more info on that, then please let me know. But otherwise, the biggest counteractive precaution you can do is just try not to do anything bad, any kind of bad things out there in Central America, especially when it comes to wandering to certain areas or doing certain things you know you shouldn't be doing. Then that's when the Siguanaba will not have any kind of encounter with you. But as far as the Central American mythological creature, whatever this is, that's pretty much all the info that I have here. But if anyone is from that area or those 3 areas and happens to have anything else that's interesting, maybe something else to share as far as specific examples of coming across the Siguanaba, then please post those comments below. I'd love to hear that info too. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.